Growing up, for me, the shofar service was the heartbeat of Rosh Hashanah. It was that for me and my friends. No matter where we were in our suburban synagogue, and no matter what mischief we were up to, we instinctively found our way back to the sanctuary. We were drawn by the mysterious and majestic call of that ram's horn. Its raw, piercing, ancient sound, shamanistic, earthy. We were dressed in our Pierre Cardin suits, and there was a guy standing on the bima with a ram's horn. It was surreal. It still is. But something about those moments transported me to a place beyond the ordinary, where time seemed to stretch, and the weight of its significance pressed into my young heart. I mean, I won't lie. There was definitely a part of me that wondered if the one who blew the shofar would need a reliever, and the rabbi would come out and kind of do one of these, we need to bring in a reliever for someone. But it was full of gravitas. There are many explanations that are offered for this ritual. And by the way, it's the only biblical commandment associated with the day. I know, brisket, no, not in there. It's not there. Maimonides says it's because uru uru mishnatchem, you have to wake up. It's a wake-up call.
That I remember.
Others say that the ram's horn is to remind us of Akidat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, and the ram that took his place, a symbol of covenant and survival. Others suggest that the sound of the shofar is to echo God's own voice at Sinai, calling us into a sacred relationship. And still others would say that it's the cries of our ancestors in the wailing and the weeping sounds that the shofar makes. But as children, it was beyond explanation. It was something that we felt. The sound reached deep inside, it cut through the world's noise, and it connected us to something vast and eternal. We didn't need to understand it intellectually. We knew its power in our bones. In our bones. It was all about the bones. It turns out that pure understanding of my childhood, of our childhood hearts, an understanding that lacked language but overflowed with feeling, it remains spot on. We held a thread of truth that weaves through Jewish time, Torah, and tradition. After all these years, this morning, today, it's all about the bones. I want to pick up a thread that begins in 1875 and follow how it sows a 19-year-old Jew from a small town in Galicia to the shofar, to hope in its most empowered and empowering form, all the way back to those bones. That Jew from Galicia left home and started traveling across Europe, armed only with his poetry, his music, and according to many sources, a very colorful personality. Somewhere along the way, around 1878, he composes a 9-stanza poem whose themes echo the precarious reality of millions of Jews at that time. The poem's title was Tikvatenu, Our Hope. And its author was Naftali Hertz Ingber, not Ingber. Cue slide. It's important because I'm going to mention his name quite a bit. From those original 9 stanzas, 2 emerged as the unofficial Jewish anthem of survival and aspiration. In 1945, just 5 days after the liberation, hundreds of survivors of Bergen-Belsen sang this song during Kabbalat Shabbat, their Friday night service. These 2 verses that you see now and know well were sung also again following the proclamation of the establishment of the State of Israel on May 14, 1948. Ingber's poem becomes a song set to music, and Tikvatenu becomes HaTikvah, the hope. a testimony to the enduring resilience of the Jewish people. But what makes Ingber's HaTikvah so powerful? In the bones of the poem lives not just hope, but a singular expression of hope, a form of hope that Dr. Oded Leshem, an Israeli researcher on hope, called optimal hope. Optimal hope, he writes, posits that hope is not merely a passive state of wishing for positive outcomes, but an active and constructive process that can significantly influence an individual's mental well-being and resilience. According to his theory, hope consists of three key components: setting goals, pathways to achieving them, and having the agency to achieve them. Goals represent the desired future outcomes that we strive to achieve. Pathways refer to the strategies and methods identified to reach those goals. And agency embodies the belief in one's capability to execute these strategies successfully. Leshem emphasizes that fostering optimal hope requires balancing setting realistic goals and maintaining a positive outlook. It enables individuals to navigate challenges effectively. One of the key components of Leshem's optimal hope is that those who focus on the desire to reach the goal can find small, agentic ways to achieve it. Even when obstacles appear, they focus not on the possibility of achieving that goal, but on the desire to do so. At the heart of Ingber's poem, beating with the power of optimal hope, is the word od. Only 2 letters, its power is outsized in the Jewish tradition. Od. It's a small word with a big soul. Od appears more than 600 times in the Bible. It means still or more. And sometimes when coupled with lo, it means no more or yet more. These mirror image meanings of od chart a space that holds centuries of od, more Jewish pain, od, Jewish persecution, od, suffering, and simultaneously the possibility of spiritual endurance, survival, hope, and renewal. Kol od balevav. Yes? Can you hear that? Can you say it? Kol od. One more time. Kol od. Ingber takes the word od, and he says, as long as. As long as. Now, this poet Ingber was an educated Jew. He knew the Bible quite well, as one who would in the 19th century literary circles. He's not inured. It's not unknown to him that perhaps the most powerful usage of the word od is in the story of Jacob and his lost son Joseph. Joseph represents odness, more. But what happens to Joseph? The brothers, of course, rise against him and send him to slavery, only to have Joseph rise up and become the viceroy of Egypt. And the text says over and over and over again that Jacob refuses to give up hope on his lost son, Joseph. Od beni chai, he says, my son is yet alive. Od, od, od. And when finally Joseph reveals himself to the brothers, his first words are, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. And then immediately these words, Ha'od avichai, is my father yet alive? And when Jacob finds out that Joseph is indeed alive, the brothers bring back the news. Jacob begins to cry. Says, my son, Odenu, he's still alive. Od, he's still here. It must not be lost on Ingber when he writes, Kol od balevav, that as long as within our hearts there is still od, a hope, an od, an ember, a dream, a vision. And then Ingber does something remarkable. He adds in the very next stanza, Od lo. Nope, not yet. We haven't given up hope. We have the kol od, the Alkma hope. We have the dream. And he quotes, Avda tikvatenu. Our hope is not lost. Where did he get this phrase from? Our hope is not lost. Lost hope. He takes it and is in conversation with the prophet Ezekiel. Ezekiel, who lived during the time of the Babylonian exile around 600 before the Common Era, when the Jewish people were uprooted from their land and their hopes seemed completely shattered. He has a vision in chapter 37 of the book of Ezekiel of a valley with dry bones. And in this vision, God says to him, these bones are Beit Yisrael Hema. They are the children of Israel. The house of Israel are these bones. And prophesies to the bones and tell them rhetorically, HaTikvah atzamot ha'ela, will I bring these bones to life? Will I bring these bones to life? And the souls say, Avda tikvatenu, we have no hope. The bones, the children of Israel say, Avda tikvatenu, we have no hope. And Ingber responds to the exiled, the desperate, the despairing, and says, Od lo avda tikvatenu. Our hope is not lost because we've been dreaming for 2,000 years. Od lo avda tikvatenu. As long as there was something in us that believed, in spite of all the obstacles, in spite of all of the challenges, we believed. Kol od balevav. As long as there was a smidgen of possibility, our bones were still alive. Od lo means not yet. It implies that while hope may be hanging by a thread, it still exists. It's fragile, but it's not gone. It carries a duality. It acknowledges the proximity to despair, but also defiantly clings to hope. Od lo avda tikvatenu, our hope is not yet lost. Acknowledges hope's precariousness and asserts its survival. But it is precarious, isn't it? Even with the promise of divine resuscitation, Ezekiel's bones give up avda tikvatenu. In the aftermath of 10:7, can we blame anyone who feels it's just too much? Itai Weitzman, a young father who found himself on that terrible morning barricading his family inside their home as terrorists descended on his community. He had lived through wars before and endured uncertainty, but this felt different to him. As he huddled with his children in a safe room, hearing gunfire and chaos outside, he later shared, I just kept thinking, how much more can we take? How much od? More? After everything that we've been through, how can there still be more, he said. His cry wasn't just for himself, but for an entire nation that has lived through wave after wave of violence, conflict, and uncertainty. The feeling of not od lo, we haven't yet lost, but lo od, no more. No more pain, more fear. It's palpable in the air. Or take Adi Halperin, a mother who lost her son in the attacks, a son who was set to be discharged from the army 2 weeks after 10/7. Adi had already lost her husband years earlier to an illness, and now her son, who was her only son. He was taken in an instant. In an interview she said, I don't understand how there can be more after this. What more can I possibly lose? Lo od, no more. The depth of her despair and the overwhelming sense of no more is something we can all feel in our own bones. It's a cry of anguish that we've all asked in our ways, whether in moments of personal tragedy or collective grief. We can hear the piercing cries of Lo od, no more, from family and friends everywhere we turn. It's not hard to find, and it's not unwarranted. There's justified, straightforward, honest howls of Lo od, no more. No more economic hardship. Can we handle more political upheaval? More crises on every front? After enduring the collective trauma of COVID-19, not to mention the profoundly personal heartbreaks that each of you carry in here today, the weight of another failed relationship, the loss of a loved one, more feels like an unbearable burden to bear. How can we face more when it seems we've reached our limit? How can we bear the weight of another disappointment and round of pain when the last one still clings to us like a shadow? No more, please. I can't hold it. Our bones are too dry. As understandable as those feelings are, we also have the opposite happening at the same time. Even in moments of lo od, not another moment, we have od lo, not yet arriving and arising at the same time. Remarkable moments of heroism from people like you and me who just refuse to give up hope. In the immediate aftermath of the unspeakable horrors on that day, we witnessed miraculous, holy actions. Just days before, Israel had been a nation divided, and yet in that moment, its people showed up for one another. Emergency medical teams and hospitals nationwide mobilized astonishingly, revealing extraordinary coordination and preparedness. Local communities came together offering comfort, aid, and shelter to those affected by the attacks. It was a display of profound solidarity and resilience amidst the devastation. Thousands of volunteers, civilians, organizations, neighbors, they all stepped forward to help with search and rescue operations. Their response was remarkable, and it reminded us that the deep well of communal spirit and strength emerges davka, specifically in our darkest moments. I'm sure all of you have stories of heroism. I'll share mine. The story of Oz Davidian, who was an Israeli farmer who saved 120 people during the massacre at the Nova Festival. He made 20 trips in his truck to rescue survivors. I know, amazing. Faced unimaginable dangers each time. Shocked by his bravery, one of his passengers thought he must have been part of the security services because no one else was coming to their help. Yusuf Zaadna was a Bedouin minibus driver. He saved 30 people that day. 4 of his own family members remained missing, and his own cousin was killed, but his actions express od lo, not yet. Not yet. Od lo HaTikvah. Od lo HaTikvah moved retired IDF General Noam Tibon, who rushed to his son Amir's kibbutz. I'm sure many of you heard this. His wife came along and drove as he manned the windows, battling terrorists all the way down to rescue his own family. When his son Amir's young daughters, they were only calm because they knew their grandfather, Saba, was on the way. And when he finally knocked on their doors, his family's tears, the tears of fear, were turned into tears of relief. Od lo HaTikvah. These stories, alongside countless others, like Yanai Kaminka, who saved his unit before he was killed, or the amazing Rachel Edri, someone in Israel might know Rachel. She was the Savta who invited Hamas terrorists in and outwitted them by offering them home-cooked meals and cookies. She reminded us, Od lo HaTikvah. This not yet, this unwillingness, this refusal to surrender, to despair, even as it is naturally present. That's part of the Jewish DNA. Kol od balevav pnima, nefesh Yehudi homiyah. And that lives on top of a much more powerful od lo, not yet. The late, great Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, he was surely thinking of od lo when he penned these words. He wrote, Judaism is a sustained struggle against the world that is, in the name of the world that could be, should be, but is not yet. The od lo of the not yet born world. The od lo of the dream of a society of compassion and justice. The od lo's that are like the pot at the end of every rainbow and every arc that bends history in towards justice and morality is an od lo, not yet. This second od lo fuels the od lo of HaTikvah. We haven't lost hope because od lo is a dream that we each carry. How did we Jews survive 2,000 years of exile? HaTikvah bat shnot alpayim. We kept a dream and a hope alive for 2,000 years. Al tishkach et hatikvah. We never forgot tikvah, hope. When it was darkest, Jews still dreamed, still loved and longed and imagined a time when they would finally be delivered. Two Jews got together and penned the most famous song of the 20th century, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Od lo. Od lo. This is optimal hope. Even when it's unlikely, it's still possible. Can you see that all activism is rooted in od lo, in not yet? Every od lo that helps us put one foot in front of the other is rooted in the od lo, not yet, of a world we pray to bring out. Guess what? That od lo, that not yet giving up, that's what animates every dreamer and every refusenik. All human progress, all activists are animated by the spirit of optimal hope, a deep desire that pushes them to hold a hand, to make a call, to say a prayer, and to never stop hoping in that not yet world. They remain connected to the bigger story that isn't yet over, has not yet emerged, that they still dream and yearn to see. In the faces of all obstacles and blockages, they have a vision of not yet that drives the unwillingness to give up. Od lo, not yet. Od lo was what animated Mahatma Gandhi in his fight against colonialism, and od lo was what fueled Martin Luther King's vision of a world without racism. Od lo, not yet, is what moved Emma Lazarus to write The Colossus, and what Amanda Gorman used to write and speak The Hill We Climb. Od lo is what is implied in the phrase a more perfect union, the not yet finished symphony that is the American dream. Od lo was there in the Gulag with Natan Sharansky and with Alexei Navalny. Od lo. Od lo animates activists in Tehran and Saudi Arabia to fight against gender apartheid. It is at the heart of each and every breath that sings the words Od Yavo Shalom. Soon peace will come. Od lo HaTikvah. Because after all, we've been dreaming and hoping now for 2,000 years. These leaders and everyday leaders like each of us remind us that Od lo is not just a phrase, it's a call to action. It urges us to harness our hopes and dreams to create a brighter future for all. Od lo is present when we refuse to give up on a dream or a hope or a child or a partner, institution. Od lo. Maybe you're thinking Ingber, who died penniless in 1909, was naive. Perhaps in his naivete, he could not have imagined the countless tragedies and massacres that would follow the return of our people to our ancestral and indigenous land. He didn't see the Hebron massacre or the Ma'alot massacre, the coastal road or the Hebron ambush. And of course, he didn't witness the October 7th pogrom. But I don't think he was naive at all. The Odlo was always present, and he knew that. It was the same spiritual power that was with us when we left Egypt and was with us when we were expelled from land after land. It was present for us after Kishinev, and it blew life into the ashes and bones of Auschwitz, Treblinka, Mauthausen, and Bergen-Belsen. It is still alive when those who survived the Nova massacre say, "We will dance again." It is present when Ben Binyamin and Gali Siegel, a couple who lost each lost their right leg during the October 7th pogrom, they stood together under a chuppah and they sang Od Yishama, still will be heard, the sound of joy, the sound of myrrh. Od. Can these bones live again? You know the answer. They have, again and again and again and again. Our hope is still here. It will never be lost. We are the religion of Odlo, not yet. And despite it all, we haven't lost that. So with all due respect to my dear friend Dan, we are not only the startup nation, we are the start over again and again and again nation. The historian Simon Ravitowitz wrote an essay titled Israel, the Ever-Dying People. And in that he observed that we, the Jewish people, throughout our history, viewed ourselves as constantly on the verge of ceasing to be, of disappearing. He wrote that it wasn't just in times of destruction. He wrote, we can hardly find a generation which did not consider itself the final link in Israel's chain. Despairing of the future, a Hebrew poet named Yehuda Leib Gordon wrote a poem titled, For Whom Do I Toil? For whom do I toil? He closes with the plaintive rhetorical question, perhaps I am the last of Zion's poets, and you the last readers. Could he have imagined the flowering of Hebrew over the last 150 years? The Odlo spirit? In the original poem with which we began this morning, Tikvatenu, Ingber wrote that only with the very last Jew is the end of our hope. So look around. Look how many people are here this morning. How many are online and in synagogues everywhere. Each of us is a radical expression of hope's continued strength. We are each soldiers in an army of hope. So what does this shofar, this year, mean for me? My younger self got it right. It was really about the bones. It's remarkable that I didn't realize the connection until I began thinking about this, and about this year, and about Rosh Hashanah in a post-10-7 world. In a way, this year's Tikkat Shofar, the blowing of the shofar, is not unique at all. For 2,000 years, we have embodied in a ritual form the same profound mimetic message that God gave to Ezekiel and the bones over 2,000 years ago. Just as God breathed into the dry bones in Ezekiel's vision and revived them, we also breathe into this desiccated, detached bone. With each blast, we proclaim, Od lo avda tikvatenu. Our hope is not yet lost. The sound that we create isn't just a ritual, it's a declaration that with every breath we affirm that despite everything, the grief, the suffering, the unbearable weight of Od more, we are still here. Adayin po. We're here. Each breath drawn from these bones and channeled is God's ultimate affirmation to us. The rabbis could have mandated that there are other trumpets, silver ones, chatzotzrot, but instead the rabbis say, use a ram's horn, a bone that is shaped like a birth canal, to mimic the cries of a newborn child that we breathe into existence. I trust you, God says, you are my agents to bring about the Odlo world, the world that is not yet here. I believe in you. I believe in you. Use the breath I gave you to revivify your deadened parts, your communities, your families, your heart. I give you my breath, God says, and now you make the world live again. Can you see now why we sing HaTikvah? HaTikvah. HaTikvah is the breath that revives us. It reminds us, Odlo, not yet. We have a much bigger story that we are tapped into, that we must breathe into existence. There's life that we and only we can bring forward into the world. And so we make music out of a bone. Naomi Shemer said, Al tishkach et hatikvah. Don't forget the hope. Last year, remember we sang a song as our anthem. In the absence of a shofar, we focused on a song that might help us do the work of the shofar, which is to cry. Remember this? Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, and I sing it again. Tears stream. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, and and now the words. Lights will guide you home. What's the next words? And ignite your bones. I'll try to fix you. This year, as we ignite our bones, we breathe light and love and hope. We're reminded that our tradition says that we are to sound 100 notes in totality on the day of Rosh Hashanah. And so today, my kavanah, our intention this morning, is that with each sound, with each breath, we're sending life and hope to the over 100 hostages that are still in Gaza. We will never let them, we will not let them be forgotten. We're going to add Od Echad, one more, for the 101st. One final blast, a second Tikiyah Gedolah, so that by the end of the day we'll have done 101. We hope that many of them are alive. And we hope that as we sing together, Kol Od Balevav Pnima, with each moment of hope, that we mine, that we find, that we share, that we express, with each moment in which we have another moment of patience to do the hard work of building back after so much tragedy and loss. That we not only enliven them, but all of those around us with the power of Tikiyah Gedolah, of that great sound.